Let's get the meeting started. Thank you all for coming. This is the November 13th, 2023 Select Board meeting for the town of Reading. Any changes to the following agenda?
None for me.
Nothing?
No.
Okay. Can we hear we should have a copy of the minutes of the October 9th, 2023 Select Board meeting. It's what's your preference?
Make the motion we approve them as printed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion carried. Treasurer's report.
Revenue for October was $1,625,414.93. Expenditures were $162,086.19, and as of the end of October, we had $2,141,619.46 in the bank. Delinquent taxes, right now, there's been payments since I gave you that report. Right now, what's due to the town for delinquent taxes is $100,928.30.
That's as of today.
As of today. And a couple reminders I'd like to get out there is budget requests are due by 11:30, reports are due by 12:15, and we did talk about doing budget meetings 2 Saturdays in December, the 9th and the 16th at 9 a.m.
What were those two dates again, close to budget requests?
The budget requests are due by the 30th.
30th of November.
The reports for town report are due by 12:15. And the meetings we talked about you weren't here last month, December 9th and 16th at 9 o'clock for budget workshops. And just an FYI, office is closed next week for Thanksgiving.
All week?
All week?
It's a big turkey.
I guess so.
That's all I got.
You've heard the treasurer's report.
Move to accept as written.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Action items. Jonathan, you want to go first?
Sure.
This is Jonathan Ashley from Du Bois and King. He's with doing our wastewater feasibility study.
So I've got figures that I'm going to have up here. That works well for people to be able to see here in the camera. This is a good spot. Okay. So I've worked for Du Bois and King. We've been working on the feasibility study for the village of Felchville. The area that we are studying is shown on this figure. Pretty well matches up with the residential and commercial zoning district. Basically just straying from it a little bit where the zoning district doesn't exactly match the property lines. So we with our study area are following the property lines and basically including the whole residential and commercial zoning district. The other, so that's the area outlined in red, and then these purple lines that you can see here are the designated village center that's designated with the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, and then the quarter-mile buffer around that, which is considered close enough to the village center that it qualifies for a lot of nuances, but that area is well qualified to be considered for a village wastewater project in the state's funding system. It's really what it boils down to. So within that study area,
I'm sorry,
Uh,
are you saying that if there was going to be a wastewater treatment facility, it would need to be within that boundary, that quarter-mile boundary around the?
So the collection system would have to be picking up properties that are within that area.
Within that area, okay.
But treatment, if there was a treatment and disposal system for a wastewater project, it can be outside of that,
Okay,
and it would still be eligible.
okay.
And the way to get it there would still be eligible too. So within this study area, there are 77 parcels, and according to number of people per household in the 2017 to 2021 census, that comes out to a rough population of 180 people. That's rough because it doesn't account for any multi-family housing or apartments and commercial properties. The town of Reading is, according to the American Communities Survey census results, the median household income for the whole town is $66,500, and that makes it below the statewide median household income, which also helps you with the chances for funding for wastewater project. We are looking at water and wastewater alternatives as part of this study, so I may tend to use the word wastewater here, but water is part of what we're supposed to be looking at as well. So, one of the early things we look at on the wastewater side is the environmental constraints in the study area. There's a lot on this, but these are the things that tend to influence whether you could actually put a wastewater system in, that we've all pulled into one large map. We're talking about soils that are not suited for wastewater system or poorly suited, areas where there's bedrock outcrops, slopes steeper than 30%, the river corridor, the floodplains associated with the rivers. A lot of the blue that you see on here is the area around private wells that is not supposed to have leach fields within it. If you were designing one today, putting a well in on a property and a leach field on a property, that area around the well that we're calling, I'm gonna call those well shields because they're shaped like a shield. Those well shields on a standard single family home are 100 feet downslope of the well and 200 feet upslope of it. Some of these are larger on here because they're either a shallow well, not drilled into bedrock. Those have a bigger isolation area. Those are probably the only ones that are different on this map. So when we in our looking at this are going parcel by parcel, but this is one map of the overall, all the constraints that you're looking at. And really, so what you'd be looking for here for preferred sites for wastewater disposal is anything without color. It just looks like the background aerial photo. There's a lot going on in that, just a big picture. This checkpoint. So just on the environmental side, a couple of the big factors are the drinking water wells that are in the study area, and then the north branch of the Black River and the tributaries that come through. This is a tributary, here's the north branch of the Black River. So this would be from the state side, the funding and things that they want you to consider are the impacts to the environment and impacts to human health. Those would be some of the main things that we're looking at in the wastewater study. just to kind of put the pinpoint on what that map shows you. The environmental constraints, when you start to look at those parcel by parcel, and you look at what the soil conditions are on the site and what kind of a leach field that you'd typically be able to put in those soil conditions. If it was a well-suited site, we're assuming that you'd be able to put an in-ground leach field on the property. If it's a marginal site in the state's mapping system, then you would typically be able to put a mound system in. And then in the worst grades, then you're looking at maybe a mound system with pre-treatment or a bottomless sand filter, getting more expensive. It's not that you couldn't put a wastewater system on these if your system failed. There are exemptions if you have a system failure that you can replace with a best fix on your own property within some limitations. But this map just highlights these parcels are the ones that would be, challenged to put something affordable in to replace their leach field if it failed, or if they're looking for financing to, somebody's looking for financing to buy the property that sometimes banks raise red flags about. About the existing septic, if there are questions. These are the properties that would be challenged. I think it comes out to a total of 60 of the 77 properties in the study area. And a lot of that's because the well shields overlapping onto people's own properties and other people's properties.
So I'm sorry, did you say 60 of the 77 properties?
Yep.
If they had septic issues, leach field issues, would be challenged to correct them? Is that what you're saying because of location?
Yep.
Okay.
And like I said, it doesn't mean they couldn't.
Right.
But it's probably going to be expensive and challenging.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So a couple of the things we've looked at in the study are what are the existing wastewater and water conditions. This one at this scale doesn't show you a lot, but basically if we've got a little bit of color on these or a star, we've either the starred properties have a state wastewater permit for their existing wastewater or water system. So there was some mapping available for those to show where their leach field is and where their well is. And then we have a few others with the leach fields drawn on here. Those are properties where we got information from the landowner about the location of their septic system. On the water side, we have used the Agency of Natural Resources online database that shows where people's wells are on their property. That system is not perfect. There are a lot of wells that are mislocated in it because they're for wells that were drilled in the 60s, 70s. The roads are different than they were at that time. Somebody put them into the GIS system off of a sketch that a driller made when it was put in. They've gotten better, so the more recent wells are more accurately located, but the older wells could be very well shown, not exactly where they are in reality. But we also, if people either gave us a sketch in the survey that they returned, or if they allowed us to go on their property and locate the well with our GPS, then we use that location over and get rid of the one from the state's database. So those are the existing water and wastewater conditions. So tonight what I'm talking about for overall context is the 30% report. This is a feasibility study to look at water and wastewater needs. And the 30% report is focused on what are your needs in the study area. The 60% report, which we could probably be back in December for, at the latest January, would be looking at what the alternatives are to address the needs. But this report is to focus on what the needs are. This map is also on the wall. And unstack some of these, sorry. This map shows the soil suitability for on-site leach fields. The dark green areas are the areas that are soil that's well suited for an in-ground wastewater system. The lighter green are sites that are moderately suited, which is with more of the typically a mound site or maybe a larger leach field in-ground. Marginally suited are the light pink areas, and those are getting into pretty challenging sites to put a wastewater system. Then the red is just not suited for wastewater disposal. And the piece of information we have pulled from what we've got is the age of wastewater systems. Typical, what we've seen in Vermont for a typical lifespan for a leach field based septic system on a Vermont property is that there's a lot that goes into it, how much use you have, how well people are maintaining, a lot of different things, but overall, typical lifespan is about 30 to 40 years. And so we've got this map broken out by wastewater system age. Some of these we don't have information on. We've got a total of 77 properties. 37 of them we don't have enough information to estimate the leach field age. So that's about 48% of them that we don't know the age of. So just for context, and of the 52% that we do know, either we've gotten that information either from the wastewater permit. If there's a state wastewater permit, we have the time that it was designed and permitted to be built. So we assume that's the age of the system. If there's a drilled well on the property, then we are assuming that the septic system went in at the age of at the same time as the well. And we didn't have information on sometimes there's information on when all the buildings were built. There's like a structures database. There wasn't one here, so that sometimes helps fill in the gaps for estimated wastewater age. But for the ones that we have information on, the red properties are the ones that are over 40 years old. Based on what we've looked at for the information and also from people's survey returns. Then this type of color is the systems that are over 30 years old. The yellowish is over 20 years old, and then the blue and green are more recent. So just overall numbers, again, that we don't know almost half of them, but 19 of them are estimated to be over 40 years old, 26 over 30 years old. That's not separate, that's cumulative. If it's over 30 years old, it's also 40 years old. Over. The other way around, sorry. It's over 40 years old, it's also over 30 years old. So going down to 19 over 40, goes up by another 7 to over 30, another 5 are over 20 years old, and 9 under 20 years old. In these studies, we typically plan for a 20 to 30 year outlook. So that's another reason we look at those age ranges. All right. Also wanted to share that we surveyed people in the study area and got pretty good returns. We made a couple of attempts at it. Some people mailed in survey returns and some people filled them out online. This is an overall summary of the surveys. I wasn't going to go point by point here, but a couple of things that we sent them out with our 77 properties. We got 43 returns, so it's 56% of them that we got surveys back from, which is a pretty good rate of return. So just general summary of the information from those, from according of the 56% we got back, 51% of those said that their septic system is 40 or more years old. 12% said their system is 20 to 40 years old. 22 property, you could see the number of responses here. 3 properties that said they've had a prior sewage backup. Current concerns with their septic system, 10 properties, which is 23% of the people that returned surveys. I have other boards on these too, so I'm just debating, and sorry, about whether to jump ahead to those. I think I will. Just start with the wastewater side. So these are most of the questions we ask people to get information about their septic systems. Over half of the responses said that their wastewater goes to a leach field, 14% to a dry well, which dry wells were a common thing that used to be in the wastewater rules, but isn't allowed anymore. So when they're being replaced, a dry well is a round structure that allows the wastewater to go into the ground around it. So when you go to replace one of those, you typically end up with you need a bigger area. Since dry wells aren't allowed anymore, you typically end up having to do a trench or a mound system, so take up more space on the property. It's just a note about dry wells. 70% have not typically had any real issues around their property. 5% said they've had some sinkholes, 7% sewage smell, a couple percent some darker patches of grass, some of the signs of some issues with their system. 7% have had some sewage backup occur before. Folks who have had to do something about it, 7% said they've had to replace their septic tank, 5% have replaced their leach field, 16% other, which might include basically includes some repairs that they've made. And on the existing septic system, a little over half of the respondents don't have concerns about their current septic system, but about a quarter, 23%, said that they do have concerns. Those survey questions on the wastewater side, a few other questions we asked about people's wastewater. We, like I said, we need to plan for a 20 to 30 year period. So we've asked about if people have plans for changes to their property, like if you had wastewater capacity, would you do something more there? Or, do you have long-term plans that you want to do something? So we've got those returns in here. if you had, the green bar here is if you had access to additional wastewater treatment capacity, is there anything you would want to do with your current property that you can't do now? So that was in the, about a quarter of the people who returned them answered yes to that. If the town developed a municipal sewer system or multiple small systems, would they be interested in having their property connected? 53% said yes, 16% said no, and about a quarter were in between. And we've asked about what would the, what are your primary concerns about a community wastewater system in Felchville, and the number one ends up being costs, 63%. Well, we really had two questions about costs. One would be what their costs would be, 63%. One at what the town's costs would be, at 49%. I don't think those were either or. I think you could answer yes to both of those. Quarter have no concerns about doing a community wastewater, and 14% are concerned about growth. We basically try to, and we have some open-ended, some ability to do open-ended answers. We try to bring up the things that might often be brought up, and then leave it open for some other answers too.
What do you mean when you say they're concerned about growth?
Well,
Growth. What do you mean by growth?
Growth and development that may result.
Okay.
Concerns about potential increase, faster growth, or development that may result.
Okay.
Vermonters don't like change. That's an over simplification. I mean, I grew up here. So we also ask questions about people's water supplies, because we're supposed to look at water as an option. If a lot of the limitations in the village are around people's wells overlapping onto other properties, water can usually be less expensive to build than a wastewater system. That's not always the case, but typically a little more to do wastewater. The funding picture is different. There are a lot of things that would factor in there, but we're supposed to look at it in a feasibility study. So we've asked about people's water supplies. 23% are concerned about how their drinking water might be affected by septic systems in the area. 53% aren't concerned about it. We've got information on what type of water source people have, whether it's a drilled bedrock well or a shallow well or a shared well. And we asked about people's water quality, whether they're satisfied with their water quality, which we said was clarity, color, taste, odor. 19% were not satisfied, 2/3 were. We always leave the chance to not answer things too, so we've got blanks here. And do they get enough water from their water supply? Most 80%, 79% were yes to that, and 12% no. And I think I just had more. The overall picture. So I'll start taking questions. Hopefully there'll be some, but just going forward from here, I guess I already touched on this a little bit. The next thing would be our 60% report. That's where we're going to have some alternatives mapped and some preliminary costs on those for comparison. Then we would do a 90% report that goes more in depth on the costs over the life cycle of of the alternatives, so that 60%, we may have gone through the construction costs, but we haven't, gone through, if you're gonna run a water system or a wastewater system for 20 years, how does that compare the life cycle costs to the other alternatives? And we'll include keep everything the way it is as in that comparison, so people can see the costs relative to that. We'll look at a few alternatives for where you could put a leach field, how you could collect the wastewater. There are some collection system alternatives called STEP and STEG. We can get into more at that meeting. Some options of more one centralized system, and then where there might be a system in different parts of the village, and then we would look at whether a public water system, how that would compare if you just did public water as opposed to a wastewater project. So we would do a 60% public meeting, and then a 90% where we've recommended a preferred alternative, and we have more detail on the costs, and we'll have a meeting at that stage also. After that, if the town has a preferred alternative that they want to move forward with, we can help apply for the funding for that, and the funding for this part of the study is 100% paid for by the ARPA funding for village wastewater. ARPA is the American Rescue Plan Act. You could qualify for that same type of subsidy for the next step of engineering towards doing something here. But we're in the early stages. I've just looked at the needs so far, and good time to start going through questions.
You said you could have a 60% report for December or January?
Yep.
Okay. And then what about the 90%?
Probably after this.
April, May?
After the 60% report, I'd say we need 2 to 3 months to do the 90%.
Mm-hmm.
It'll depend a little bit on what ends up being the preferred alternative. If it's pretty straightforward, it could be, at the shorter end of that.
Okay.
Coming out of the 60%, are we expected to select the preferred alternative to then drive you to allow you to do the work towards 90%?
We usually, at least we end up with the top 2 or so for comparison. Really, through the feasibility study, you don't have to officially decide on what you want to do. There's one step after that that's called the preliminary engineering report. And in that, you're supposed to really say, okay, this is what
This is the preferred solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jonathan, is this information available that you could send me in a PDF so I could put it on the website?
Yes.
Okay. Would you do that, please?
Yep. I don't know who.
Go ahead, Bill.
So, one point of clarification and a question. When you refer to wastewater treatment, you're referring specifically to sewage treatment or septic, correct?
Yeah, so typically in a village this size, most of the Vermont village wastewater studies are coming out with something that keeps people's septic tanks on their properties and collects, and if it needs a higher level of treatment to go into the wastewater field, then there's more done on the way.
But that's a hybrid septic system essentially.
Right, it's moving your leach field off the property. It's not all of them are that situation, it's just most of them have come out that way according to the funding agency. So you could also collect raw wastewater, bring it to a centralized treatment place and have the, what's the septic tanks.
So my follow-on question is, do state wastewater regulations permit composting toilets and water systems in lieu of septic or as an addition to septic?
Not in lieu of, but they give you a credit for composting system towards that your amount of waste is reduced. But they don't do it in lieu of, except for like at some of the state parks, there are composting systems, and those are permitted and maintained. But just as a matter of overall, it's more of a best fix and special situations that they allow it in.
So they are in special circumstances, they are allowed in lieu of or as a supplement to a septic.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, because they have some significant cost advantages over a new septic system or certainly a sewage treatment system.
Yeah.
And I hope there'd be some kind of analysis or that you might include in your next stages of your report regarding that, because for a lot of people, obviously, if my septic fails tomorrow, I'm gonna have to spend $40,000 to get it fixed.
Right.
Put a new one to meet current regulations. On the other hand, I could put in a clad emulsion for about $4,500 that would take care of human waste, and I could probably another $5,000 I could deal with gray water waste, and I'd be golden.
Yep.
And prior to septic systems, that's how we used to do it.
Yeah.
And those systems come a long way, and I think that they don't get much attention, but from a cost standpoint, they're going to beat any other option all the hell. I mean, there's no contest.
Yeah, Marie?
Sorry I was late, but in your analysis of the village, did you look at the potential? I mean, there are a lot of very small lots.
Yes.
And as these septic systems age out, is there alternative sites on the lots for a current new septic system?
Well, we've done that a little bit on the. There we go. On this map, so when we looked at the environmental constraints that we mapped, and then went lot by lot to look at the area available, we've cut out existing buildings, we've put in setbacks from property lines, we've put the environmental constraints of people's well shields, steep slopes greater than 30%, bedrock outcrops, surface water, all the things that you need to keep your leach field away from, and then poorly or not suited soils or marginally suited, and when you start to do that and then go lot by lot we've gone and done that lot by lot, and then you end up with an area, and these properties that are highlighted are the ones where we've said that it's going to be a challenge to do that. It does not mean you can't do something, but it comes out to, I think I said 60 of the 77 properties that would have some challenges. A couple of them are larger. I mean, you could do you could replace a failed wastewater system on any of these lots with, say, permits, but it'll be a challenge and it'll be costly on the ones that we've, based on that analysis.
And on the responses you got, you said 16% of the respondents said they wouldn't want to be on the system. Do you know, did they say why?
No, we didn't ask that. Yeah, we try to keep the survey questions as friendly as possible, and some people you start to get into the weeds of those type of questions, and we try to balance out getting good information and making it not too intrusive with what we're asking. So I don't think we asked that.
So one other question on the water quality side, more on the potable water. Were you guys able to test any drinking wells in the village at all?
No, it's not.
Is there a plan to test any of the?
No.
Why not?
It's not. So the feasibility study is normally all desktop. Occasionally they include some test pitting at potential disposal sites for a wastewater system. They don't typically include water sampling. Why that is probably because it's kind of like what I just said with the survey answer. You're getting into, some people might not want their water tested, and so there's probably some. I'm just reading into it. There might be some inequity there of, you're only going to get your water tested if you want it tested, and it's not fair to everybody, those type of things.
No, I agree. It's probably just for people. You can't possibly design mitigation strategy without a well test. It's just impossible. So the absence of actual well testing, I think, is going to hinder the town's ability to make certain decisions. So just on the well one, I'm not talking wastewater, I'm talking well one.
It's not out of the question that you couldn't get funding to do that. If the town wanted to do water testing, that could be part of the preliminary engineering report, which is the next step after this. That could be part of the next phase if that's something that people wanted information on.
Jonathan, the disposal site, when and how is that determined? Where all this is gonna go?
At the next report, the 60% will have shown some of the areas that look like they would be promising at that meeting. Typically, if somebody's property is shown on those maps, we like to have a conversation with the landowner before that. So it's not at the public meeting that it's the first time they've seen it. So that might be the challenge of doing it as quickly, because sometimes it takes a little while to get a hold of people and have a good conversation about whether they're at least okay with being shown on a map. There's no, certainly if anybody's listening and I end up, wanting to talk to you about it, we're way early for any kind of commitment. It's just really to do the courtesy of asking, hey, are you okay with us at least showing that you have a big area on your property that's well suited? Many things down the road, would you at least be okay with the town talking about you in the report? So.
For a village this size, what types of systems have been put in for when you're going to do an alternatives analysis to look at the options for us? So for something this size, what's the typical approach?
Yeah, it varies town to town on the available area, but overall, it's at least septic tank treatment in a large community leach field that is called an indirect discharge system. It's the state's permitting system that everybody's home leach fields is in is called it's a small scale rules, not called anything, but it's anything under 6,500 gallons a day, which is a pretty big amount. This would be over 6,500 gallons a day, so it would be an indirect discharge system in the state's regulatory system. And what all that means is that you have a big enough leach field, you're putting enough water in the ground that we're gonna evaluate when it gets to the nearest surface water, because it's indirectly discharging to that. And there's a lot that goes into that permitting process, but it's a larger leach field than normal, at least septic tanks for treatment, but you can increase how much you can put into the ground by doing a higher level of treatment, like recirculating sand filter system or an actual biological wastewater treatment system.
Considering, go ahead.
No.
I'll just
Go
keep
ahead.
going.
Go ahead.
Considering, most of the village, it's very flat, lots of floodplain, known flooding. Spray field's an option?
Yeah, spray fields are allowed in the wastewater rules.
Which is, I'm the water quality person for DEC.
Okay.
For this location. So, yeah, so the underground movement of that, because the village is so low in the flat areas where you're gonna have room for a large leach field, is a concern. And I work with a lot of the ski areas too, the spray fields,
Yep.
way up the hill,
Yep.
make a difference.
Yeah, and those are most commonly done in areas that are wooded.
Yeah.
You're allowed to put a lot more wastewater into the ground in a wooded area than you are in an open field. And you have to provide a higher level of treatment to do spray application.
Any other questions, Bob?
No, I don't really have a question. I was just trying to wrap up. So I just wanted to kind of summarize. So this was the needs assessment, right?
Yep.
Again, 77 units, 77 households.
Yep.
You only got responses from half of them,
Yep.
right?
So little over half,
little over half.
53%. Yep.
Okay, so that was about 40 or so-ish
Yep.
households that responded. And of those, half of them did not have any issues with their septic system, from what I heard here.
I think that's right.
Yep.
Let's go back.
Yeah. It's all in this one.
I just wanted to, we've been talking about throwing around with a lot of data, and I just wanted to make sure I wrap my head around roughly the scope of what we're talking about. So there's maybe 20 or so households that seem like they are interested in this.
Well, that brings up a whole other question, is how old are these systems currently? I mean, do you?
He's got that
I did that
information.
assessment here too,
Yeah.
even though they don't have all the
Yeah,
data.
22 of them being over 40 years old of the ones that returned surveys. 43 surveys completed.
Okay.
That's your other question.
Yeah, that's one of the things that you really have to consider is they're not permanent systems, they're going to go eventually. And if they're already 40 years old, that's,
I get it. I get it.
they're starting to age out.
Well, thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah.
You're gonna get in touch with us when you might have the 60%
Yep.
review? Okay.
Yep. What would be your normal meeting schedule?
Second Monday of the month.
Okay. Yeah, we should, given that I should probably talk to some property owners, which I want to coordinate with you about. We should probably plan on the January meeting for that then.
Okay. Good.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll send you a copy of the PDF of the report, so that you said you're gonna make it available on the town website?
Yep.
Okay, so that's one way people could look at it, and, feel free to, who would be at the town receiving questions or comments on it? When they go to the town clerk?
And they go to the select board.
I mean, you could just forward them to me when.
We could get a list of questions, forwarded them to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we'll update this part of the report really all the way through the completion of it.
Mhm.
There's new information about existing conditions. Anytime, we'll keep updating that as we go. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks,
You're
Jonathan.
welcome to stay, or you
Yeah.
back through the blizzard. Okay, next up is highways. Is Glenn on? Hi, Glenn.
Yeah, I'm here. Nothing really to report. I mean, we're getting them almost done. I mean, all we're doing is putting the finishing touches on a lot of them right now on the roads and getting them ready to plow. But other than that, that's about it.
You get the potholes.
On the Tyson Road,
Yes.
now I figure Wednesday, it's supposed to be only 30 in the mid 30s tomorrow. But I figure Wednesday it's supposed to be up in the upper 40s, so I figured that'd be a good day to do it. When this material's a little easier to work with.
That's all the paving?
Yeah, that's all the paved spots on the Tyson Road.
Okay.
Redo them one more time, hopefully.
Yeah, it looks like maybe until after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Yeah,
What's that?
got a lot of feedback. On I called Blacktop twice today. I haven't gotten any response relative to if they are going to be able to do it between now and the 30th or not. So we need to get those potholes done and packed in.
Yes, that's what we figured. We
Okay.
definitely have to get them taken care of.
Bob, what was the status of the paving?
Can we get rid of this feedback?
I think she's trying to. We're just asking about the paving of Tyson. I think were you going to report on that? Or?
We had one bidder show up to the bidders meeting, they were there, and they came back, they didn't come back initially. And I called them, or they actually called me and said the reason that they didn't respond was they could not meet the 22nd date of November that we had requested, the day before Thanksgiving.
Yep.
So I asked him, what can you meet?
Right.
And he said, probably we could have it done by the end of November, which is the 30th, 8 more days, 4 of them being a holiday. But nevertheless, so we asked him to send a proposal. He did. It was $125,000. It was the only proposal that came in. And now I'm waiting to find out if, in fact, they still think they can get it done at this point in time. And they'll probably say yes, because we're 3 weeks away, but still. So that's the status.
Okay. And do we have to accept that proposal by a certain date or anything like that?
Well, basically, that was going to be part of the comment today. I asked Gordy if he had called him, and he said he had not. So I was going to tell him that it's a go-ahead if he can get it done by November. Now, if he doesn't, be my thought that we go out for bids again next year.
Absolutely.
There'll be more people apt to respond. So.
Do we feel that 125K is reasonable for that work?
The way things are right now, I don't know
That's
what
the
to
going
tell you
rate.
about.
Yeah, okay.
I had an estimate of 75 to 100,000.
Okay.
It came in at 125 with one bidder.
Yeah.
And everybody's busy. He won't, like I said, he won't get it paved until after Thanksgiving. Usually they shut the plants down after Thanksgiving, so they'll probably keep it open for other projects.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would expect they must be keeping it open, otherwise you wouldn't have even commented
Correct.
on getting it done by the 30th. They
Correct.
must have some big projects going that will keep it open anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a shame that you couldn't have gone on with the Plymouth side, and you're paving today.
Much bigger job on the Plymouth side, Gary.
Right, but I mean, still, we would have fought with all their equipment right there, but they may not be wanting to talk to anybody about any more jobs. They probably gotta go right from there someplace else.
Every paver I talked with said that they couldn't do it. They're booked beyond Thanksgiving.
Oh.
Was lucky to get blacktop.
This is, with these small spots, this is not an easy job. It's not like just laying asphalt across a gravel road or covering an existing. They've got to take dirt out of just the spot, that some of them are not much bigger than this table or the 2 tables. That's difficult. And then they got to put it back in somehow and roll it. So it's not an easy job.
No.
I think you would agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So Bob, you're saying we're waiting to hear back from them if they can meet the 30th. If they can, we're going to give them the go-ahead. If they're hesitant at all, we're going to push it until next year.
Great.
Okay. I like that.
And we did run this by FEMA to see if it was acceptable, and
Yep.
they kind of agreed that it is acceptable. Anything we're doing with the roads, we get FEMA's permission before we commit. Anything else on highways, Glenn?
No, that should do it.
Okay,
That's about it.
good. Adam,
Adam Kozlowski, I'm the chair of the Cemetery Commission. We've got a couple of calls recently referring to the parking, the lack of parking at the South Reading Cemetery, otherwise known as Malagash. Coming mostly just to see if there's an opportunity to work with Glenn and some of the other highway folks about talking about maybe widening the shoulder there on Malagash, a relatively simple, low-cost solution to providing a little bit better, safer parking. The way it currently, I think what has happened over the years is the roadside is, slowly built up as material has been added, and at this point there's a pretty steep curve and angle, and you either have to park directly on the road, there's nowhere really where to pull off unless you're in somebody's driveway, or park at a pretty extreme angle, and I think it's difficult from an accessibility point of view. And we've had, just this year, had a couple of calls about the inability for people to park safely there. We also have our mowers with the trailer and trucks and stuff coming and going from there, and I'm sure they would appreciate a level spot to unload also. So I guess my proposal, I submitted just a quick aerial view of the area that we're interested in talking about. It's almost adjacent to the town garage, so as far as logistics and maybe having a front loader or some equipment or fill or something, I'm hoping it would be easy. Cemetery Commission does have funds, and then we also obviously are in the budgeting season, so we could always also talk about adding a little bit of funds that way to help with this process if it was something that didn't already fall under, the roads budget or something like that. I think what we're probably thinking is everything's wide open, everything's on the table now. The proposal was just the idea that we could provide a little extra fill to create a shoulder for 2 or 3 cars to safely be there. But obviously with other considerations, snow removal, the protection of the gates, other things may come up. I guess I wanted to just sort of run the idea by the select board, talk a little bit about maybe who we could talk with or start to collaborate with some of the town staff. And then I would take the lead on it and point from the Cemetery Commission's perspective and take it from there. And if we need to come back with a more fleshed out idea at a later meeting, we could do that. Just want to sort of get the ball rolling anyway, since it's winter and it's a good time of year to start planning for this sort of thing to maybe deal with in the spring or next summer.
all of this area that you're talking about, is that town property?
On the cemetery side it is, yeah.
We have still 25 feet from the center of the road.
And then the rest of
The rest of it is cemetery, so,
Yeah.
okay.
The fence right there, Adam, can that be moved, or is there a stone wall there?
It's a stone wall, yep, that entire north side of the cemetery is a pretty substantial stone wall, yeah.
I've been by it a million times.
Yeah, no, I know, I'm the same way sometimes too, so yeah. I think the room is there. There may even be a little bit of material that could be taken. You know, it comes off a rise, and when you first come off the rise, everything on your right is actually higher than grade, and then it quickly passes grade and goes below grade for where people feel comfortable to start pulling off. So there may be some slight material that can be harvested from that area even too. It's something that somebody with more road expertise than I do could maybe help take a look at it and think out a game plan. Mostly I wanted to involve folks like Glenn or someone else that had that sort of eye for that before proposing anything super firm. But I think again, a shoulder is nothing more than what we really need there. So.
Okay.
You guys see an issue with it?
I don't see an issue at all.
Yeah.
I think it's a
I'd
good
say
idea.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess then I would start working with Glenn a little bit.
I would.
Maybe set up some times and stuff. Okay, I can do that over email and set up some times when his season quiets down a little bit. Before the snow starts falling.
in his box.
Fantastic, and I see him on the call obviously here too,
No,
so.
because,
Always, he's cut and run. I don't blame him. All right, well, thanks, I really appreciate you listening, and hopefully we'll be back with a more fleshed out detailed plan, so.
All right, thank you, Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
FEMA and bridge update repairs. They do the bridge update repairs. Kind of a slow go. We do have final plans for both Archer and Grasshopper. The Archer Bridge is gonna have to drive some piles on the far side, or excuse me, take the old abutment off, drive piles, pour a new abutment, realign the bridge, and then set the beams back onto the abutments, new abutments. Stone fill up along the side, there's 275 feet of stone fill. Grasshopper is gonna be a box culvert, concrete footings in the ground, 6 feet below the stream bed, concrete walls vertically, and a slab deck with a 18-foot opening. That's according to the new waterway. FEMA has said that they wouldn't participate because we only had a culvert in there before. And then Bob talked with them and said, we have a hydraulic study that says we need to go with a larger structure. So FEMA is saying that, okay, maybe if that's included in the proposal, which it will be, that they would participate in the funding. We have one hurdle to get through, and that's the stream alteration engineer. This work, I think, and I do have confirmation from the engineer that he will allow us to work on those projects this winter. Verbal commitment only. I haven't had anything in writing. Before we send it out to bid, I want in writing the stream alteration engineer's approval to say that we can construct in the wintertime. As soon as we have that, we do run it by FEMA to make sure they're agreeable on it, and then we can send it out to bid.
And AOT,
And what?
Agency of Transportation.
And Agency of Transportation, yes.
Is the engineer the one who's getting the stream alteration approval from the state?
Yes, he says he's worked closely with him on several other projects, and so I've delegated him the task to get the permit, because the engineer is probably gonna make some alterations to the design in order for us to work in the wintertime. We went with that design rather than a box culvert with a bottom in it, or a culvert with a bottom in it, because if you have a culvert, anything with a bottom, you have to remove a lot of stream bed, put the new structure in, and then put new stream bed, that existing stream bed back in the river, which is a lot of disturbance to the stream bed. So that's why we elected the footings. There are 6-foot wide footings on the outskirts, so there's a smaller trench, less stream bed disturbance. So I thought that would probably be more acceptable for the structures, for the stream alteration engineer.
Plus, we have water diversion already there.
Correct.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, more about just the current state of things up there. I've had a number of people, like a repairman who was coming to work on my refrigerator the other day, and he was like, "Oh my God, I almost drove right into the hole. GPS is sending me up here. I've been up here before, and there are 2 cones, and they're right now really far apart. And so if you're just kind of blindly driving up Tyson, it could be quite easy to just
I recognize that. I drove up there the other day and I noticed there was some work happening on the adjacent house.
Yeah,
And that berm that we had in the road is gone now.
yeah. That's
We'll
kind
we'll put another one
So we
there.
gotta put another berm there.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe just another cone.
We'll put a berm in,
Big old hunk of concrete.
yeah.
I mean, in the dark too, it could be a problem.
When I turn in the proposals for the bridges, I'm gonna ask for a completion date from each one of the contractors. And that'll be our deciding factor of how we price and completion date, because it's imperative for the town to have both those lanes open. Any other questions on, what about FEMA? We're all set with FEMA?
Yeah,
Sure,
Okay.
we love FEMA.
we have a weekly meeting with FEMA every Tuesday at 9 o'clock. A lot of it is redundant, a lot of it is new things that we learned in the week that just passed. I did get some good news today from a gentleman where we upsized culverts. I thought we were gonna have to go through the mitigation process. And he told me that if we only went up one size, then we don't have to worry about mitigation. It'll be covered. And that's like going from an 18-inch to a 24-inch, or something along that line there. So that's, I think all of the ones that we were gonna go to 24-inch have been done. And the 4-foot culvert up on Tyson Road obviously is done. So I think we're done on upsizing of culverts unless something crops up this winter that we didn't plan on, or not this winter, but next spring that we didn't plan on.
Bob, is there anything new on the, those 6 sites that we had submitted for the emergency watershed protection?
No, I don't
was
have
supposed to
anything new
take a
on
look at
that.
those?
The Archer Bridge, I asked Cordy to put in his scope of work, the 250-75 feet of riprap.
Yep.
When we send that to FEMA, we may find out, well, that's a stretch, as the guy from EWP was telling us.
Yep.
So that's in there. The rest of the sites, I don't have anything up substantial to report. But when we come to complete the highways, Bailey's Mills, for example, those will be in there and we'll find out if they support them or if we gotta go back to EWP.
Okay. So each of the 6 sites that we talked about are pre-WP are also in the FEMA proposals?
Yes.
All right.
There's 2 that would be in question. One would be the debris above Archer, because that's beyond the riprap even.
Yep.
And the other one would be up on Bailey's Mills, on the opposite side of the brook. I can't think of their name. We walked down their driveway there.
Yes, the Smiths.
Is it?
Doug
Yeah.
Smith, I think it is. Yeah.
That might be question. Those 2 might be questionable.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, just a quick comment.
Yes, sir.
I think a lot of people may not be aware or appreciate how many hundreds of hours of additional work this flood has caused for the select board and the town staff. And I just want to thank everybody, acknowledge this. I know you guys still like having a second full-time job, and you guys have really worked hard on trying to put things back in shape, and certainly I appreciate it. I know a lot of people really appreciate your efforts, so thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you too, Bill, for what you did for me this week.
Anything else on repairs?
No, I think Glenn hit it pretty good that we're pretty much calling everything complete. We can't call the Tyson Road complete, we can't call the bridges complete, obviously, but most of the rest of the highways we're now calling them complete. The kicker is Glenn and I and Callista have got to get together and put GPS coordinates on every single picture. So that may take some time.
You looking for help?
Well, you and I did the GPS, so all I gotta do now is say, okay, this picture fits this spot right
Yeah.
here. That's the, we do it around the table, I think.
Okay, okay.
I hope.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, ARPA funds for the fire truck. During the committee gave us a report and they said they would allow ARPA funds to be paid, to be used for the fire truck. Our ARPA funds do not have to be committed until 2024, which is a year from now. So the fire truck did come in and we have allowed, the town has allowed a payment of $320,000 for the fire truck. That's what the town voted on. Selectmen's budget has $50,000 in this year's budget to pay for that $320,000. We'd have to borrow the rest of it. There is some funding available through ARPA, and this meeting here is to say what, if any, of these ARPA funds could we commit to the fire truck. So I'm open for suggestions.
Well, we do have a couple of things that you were gonna bring up, the signs to come out of the opera funds.
Yeah.
That's not come out of there yet.
We purchased a lot of cones and a lot of signs that we had talked about using ARPA funds for the highway department.
Yep.
How much?
262208.
Okay, so $2,600 there.
2,600.
100,
Okay.
yeah. You want me to spend 26,000?
Well, I didn't know.
2,600 there. The update to the website was on the list. I talked with the assistant clerk about this, and there are some things that the clerk and assistant clerk would like to do. It does not include everything the planning commission wanted, but it does include some additional website updates and changes. I don't know, somewhere there's a number that you ladies put on that.
I don't have that.
Well, anyway, somewhere there's a number. I'm gonna make a suggestion and you guys can tear it apart. Because we don't have to commit the funds for another year, I would like to take the $50,000 town funds and match it with $50,000 of ARPA funds and pay off $100,000 right now and borrow the rest, waiting to see what we may or may not want to use the other $75,000 for another year.
So that, when you say the other 75, that's what we think the balance is? of
We've got
ARPA funds right now?
125,000
125K in ARPA funds?
in the ARPA funds available.
And
So if we take 50.
6
then
months
it's
from
75.
today or a year from today, we can say, well, we'll spend
Right.
the whole 75 or whatever's
Right.
left. That's my thought. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like we've said from the beginning that whatever's left over from ARPA funds, we're going to use for the fire truck.
Right.
Right. And so it's a matter of, do we spend it all now or do we wait? It seems prudent to not spend it all now in case we
That
find
I
some new
agree.
need.
I
some
agree.
new
You never
needs
know
that
what's
pop
gonna
up.
come up.
Right. But I like the idea of paying off some of the debt right now and, reducing the interest income or the interest in it.
We do have the 50,000 still in the budget, right? We haven't made that payment.
Well, we paid for the fire truck.
Well, yeah,
Now we're putting money back in.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna be, because it came out of tax money that we haven't had without the loan. Yeah,
That would bring our loan down to 220.
we take the loan down to 220.
That's just my suggestion. You guys got something else, I'm more than willing to listen to.
So is that, Calista, the $1 million line of credit that we have?
$1 million line of credit has nothing to do with this.
Okay, haven't
That is
touched.
we've not touched it, and that is only for FEMA projects.
Okay,
We have not touched it, but it's getting close, because,
I'm afraid bridge projects are going to touch it.
yeah, the bridge projects are definitely gonna touch it, because after writing the checks for the school and the state, we don't have $2 million left in the account.
Anyway, that's my suggestion.
I think it's a good suggestion.
Yeah, I like that suggestion.
Motion?
No issues.
Got a motion?
Bob made the motion, right? It sounded like
I'll move that we use, since how we're on ARPA and we know we got the town tax, I'll move that we use 50,000 of the ARPA funds to go with the 50,000 of the town funds against the fire truck. Now,
And a loan for, you gotta have a motion for the loan, please?
what's that?
Motion for the loan,
Well, we got to get this motion over with first.
okay.
I'll second that.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. 50,000 of ARPA funds for the fire truck.
To match the 50 that was already in the budget.
And we have 50 in the budget, yes.
Okay.
So now I'll move that we borrow $220,000 to replenish the funds we've already spent for the fire truck.
And where do we borrow that from?
Bank.
I mean, is it, we just go out and,
We're this, it'll
Yeah.
come out of Mexico.
but I mean, we have to apply for, we apply for a loan, or we have a line of credit, we have something like that at the bank?
Yeah, we got separate loans.
We'll
for
give them the
individuals.
title to the fire truck.
Okay. So we have separate individual loans. This will be a new loan that we're getting with Muscola. Okay. Using the fire truck as
The
collateral.
interest rate is now, because I talked to her quite when we first started talking about
Yeah.
this. No idea what interest rates are now, but they do give us the best that they can.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to circle back to highways.
Okay?
I talked with Scott Reed, what did I tell you, last week or the week
Mhm.
before? He followed up on our new highway truck. They are now anticipating the build of the truck itself would be completed sometime between the 21st of November and the first week of December.
Wow.
So we're within a month, maybe. It's a long ways from June that they said.
Yeah.
I also talked with him about the body and the plow setup, and Viking is quoting 2 to 3 months to get that work done. After we get the truck up there. So we're looking.
So we won't have a truck this winter?
No, I don't think we'll have a truck this winter. Not until late winter at best. And you don't know what else to say about it. It is what it is.
I guess so. Not much we can do about it.
No, I meant to bring it up back under highways, and I forgot it.
Okay. Declaration of inclusion. Last meeting, you weren't here, Bob.
Nope.
We had a report from a group that wanted a,
One of them is on Zoom now.
Oh, you did the okay?
yeah, you
You want
get a copy of that? Here it is, here.
Yeah, but she
You got a
just gave me
copy of
hers.
it?
No, I didn't hear the discussion last month, so fill me in.
All right. There's the question and answers. We had Norm and Mary were available to talk with us. They are, they've been spearheading it. Of the 247 towns, 125 have adopted this wording. And since then, we've got a semi-petition with about 25 people that are interested in, 33, excuse me, people that are interested in us adopting this information. And I think you have, the governor has already signed or accepted a
Yeah,
inclusion.
Bob, during the last meeting, I was asking the question, you know, why now, why this? And I was asking specifically, is there anything that's been done at the state level for this? And so I took the action to go off and look and see if there was anything, you know, that the state had put out. And the governor had put out on May of 2021 a proclamation of inclusion, so an executive order that states nearly exactly the same thing as what this Declaration of Inclusion does. My comment back then, last month, was that I didn't understand why, if the state had done something already, why do we need to do something at the town level to acknowledge that there's already a state edict out there. So we said that we would table the discussion, bring it back once you're here, and do some research to see what was out there at the state level. So I'm still, I need to say before we even get into any of this, I am 100% in favor of every one of the tenets that's in both what the governor has put out and what this Declaration of Inclusion states. It has nothing to do with not agreeing with it. This, in my mind, my concern is purely, why do we need another regulation, need to adopt something else that's already been directed at us by the state?
That's my opinion. We don't need
understand.
another rule.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm assuming this is LGBTQ, or what?
So
What is
maybe-
inclusion of?
May I?
Go ahead.
I'll read both. I'll read the governor's edict, which came out first. All right, one paragraph here. And so this is an executive order, proclamation of inclusion, again at the state level, signed by Governor Scott. It says, the state of Vermont formally condemns discrimination in all its forms and welcomes all people who want to live and work and add richness to our state, regardless of race, color, religion, national origin, sex, gender identity or expression, age, or disability, and will protect these classes to the fullest extent of the law. Okay, that's what the governor put out. Now, the group that's asking each town to adopt the Declaration of Inclusion, here's what theirs reads. The town of, fill in the blank, condemns racism and welcomes all persons, regardless of race, color, religion, national origin, sex, gender identity or expression, age, or disability, and wants everyone to feel safe and welcome in their community. Exact same wording. As a town, we formally condemn all discrimination in all of its forms, commit to fair and equal treatment of everyone in our community, and will strive to ensure all of our actions, policies, and operating procedures reflect this commitment. The town of blank has and will continue to be a place where individuals can live freely and express their opinions. Okay? So that's the issue. And again, in my mind, it's already been directed at the state level, and I just don't understand. Yeah.
The difference being that that's a state level, and we all know that communities within the state do not always all agree on the same things. And I would say that it is a very important statement for the town to make, that this is important. And it's not, you can put edicts down from the state level, but it's not the same as the community saying, this is what we believe. And I think that's a really important statement to make.
Well, I would only say as a rebuttal to that, Marie, is that as far as I know, and I've been here a while, that we have always been a place where individuals can express their opinions and live freely. Always.
Yep.
I don't know of any situation in the past 70-plus years where anybody in the town of Reading has been discriminated against or talked about or not welcomed in Reading. And I'm kind of with you, Bob. I don't see why we need to do this. Only half the towns in Vermont apparently have done it, or thereabouts. And things like this always bring me to the question, what's really driving this? What has caused, Vermont has always been the same way. What has caused the governor to feel he had to make that statement in the first place?
Right.
And I don't think anybody can answer that question. At least I haven't seen, read, or heard where anybody can answer that question.
If the town is that way, what is the objection to being public about that is what the town believes?
I
Why
don't-
wouldn't you want to just
I don't think
support
we
that?
have to be public about it. I think we have proven that we're that way.
I think there's a huge amount of bias and prejudice in Vermont that is mostly underground, that people won't talk about. And I have experienced that bias with people very close to me, that it's there. And when you walk into a store and you're followed around the store because you look different, or when realtors won't go into a house with you because you look different, there is a lot of that in Vermont. And it's still going on, it's always going on, people just don't admit that it's going on.
And not everyone has had the challenge of seeing it and experiencing it, and I think I can respect that too. It's a privilege to not have to see that or experience that, and that is a privilege that many people in Vermont still have, to not have to know about these things. But Marie is right, it happens. I could spend the next half hour telling you stories that in fact the governor is aware of in some instances, about things that have happened. By the same token, I have to say that I'm torn. I see Bob's point that if there's been a statement in Vermont at a state level, as a town, how does it help? I think it's our actions that are the thing that make the difference. You also get into a loop on a situation like this where you can become the town that has not acknowledged this statement, and then what is the perception of the town from the rest of Vermont? And I don't know that that would be a problem, but I worry about that kind of thing. So will subscribing to this statement change anything in our local behavior? And I'm not sure that we're being asked to look at our behavior or change it in any kind of way. So that's where I'm saying, like, what's the point of it?
Right.
On the other hand, if we don't join, is that saying something we don't mean to be saying about ourselves?
Well,
It does.
I don't think just adopting this is going to change. I don't disagree with you, Marie, and I don't disagree with you either. I know there's bias in Vermont in certain communities or certain ethnic backgrounds or whatever you want to call it. That our adopting this is not going to change that one bit. Well, if it's here, it's here. If it's underground, we're never going to hear about it, whether we say this is what we feel as a select board or as a town. It's not going to change that. It's not going to do a thing for fixing that particular problem.
I think in our everyday lives, we're practicing this already.
But you're not communicating that to the people who need to hear it. So to the people out there who are experiencing that, they are hearing, by not supporting this, they are hearing that it doesn't matter to you, that they are experiencing this. That's what I'm also
I know, Marie,
involved.
but please don't say that we're not supporting this, because that's
No, I
not the case.
understand, but the voice behind that is not there, right? The town is not making its voice heard that they support this, that the town supports this, and that those people are welcome here. And that's what doing this, that's what making it public does. It acknowledges that it's happening, and it makes that population, or those populations, understand that they are welcome here.
I would be all for saying that we fully support Governor Scott's executive decision that that inclusivity is important, and we acknowledge that it's a law, and we uphold the law here in this town.
Can we say that?
Why can't we say
Can
that?
we do that?
Why-
If we don't do this, can we do that?
I mean, I feel like, I don't know how we could not do that. I don't know how we as a town could openly go against, a state law.
Well, I mean, like, I signed that paper, but I still do have mixed feelings too, because I don't wanna, like, open a can of worms. I don't wanna be divisive, even though, like, I didn't wanna bring it to the surface, because I had, as a child, a lot of anti-Semitism on me, so I didn't want it to, like, put a target on anyone's back. But I hear other people, and I'm like, yes, we need to make a statement that, that this is who we are. Rather than not making a statement that I'm still very confused by that.
It's hard, and it's very public right now.
Yeah.
And I'm not just in this case, but I'm on the board of Audubon, and we're talking about changing our name because he was a racist and a slaveholder, right? So this is a very big national discussion on making people welcome and letting them understand and hear that they are welcome, because not responding is keeping it buried. It's keeping that and not acknowledging that it is there and it's happening. And I think that would be a shame, because this town is a good place to be. And people should know that. And they should know that they can come here and feel comfortable and feel welcome.
And what else they were pointing out, the people that introduced it last time, that when young people are moving someplace, they'll look to see what the community is like. So having that, having them be able to see that brings people, which we need people in Vermont now, right? I think only 98% of people moved here last year, or something, 98 people moved here last year. So being that we need people to work and stuff like that, I think maybe we do have to do this.
And by not doing it, you just leave the question out there. Maybe they are supportive, maybe they're not supportive. So why would we go there? Not being sure of that, because you've kept it underground.
So when you say if we leave it undone, if we were to say here that we agree with this, I'm wondering what is expected then of the town? Are we
Nothing.
what?
I think
But then how do people know what our position is?
I think
Because
put
we
it on
will
the
have
website.
that signed. And
But-
just as you know,
Signed in
how
where? It's
half
somebody's-
of the towns have already signed on to it. It's out there. And it will be out there who has signed it and who has not. And the people who it's important to look for that. And they will look for it, and they will go to these websites and find out that Reading has not supported this.
Or would they find out that Reading?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Barbara.
Yes, yeah, I'm with the Declaration Inclusion Initiative. I'm part of that group. I wanted to say that what the governor signed was not a law. It was a state government directive, and it just applies to state government, to agencies, departments, commissions, employees, and such. It doesn't apply to towns. So that's why we came up with this declaration for the towns. We have not made it to all 247 towns yet, barely half of them. So that's an ongoing effort, and that number should increase. And as far as it's up to a town if it wants to take this to next steps, doing something about the declaration, setting up a committee, looking at the policies, looking at the wording, and any number of things, that's on the table and up to the town whether it wants to go in that route. And it's something that we encourage because it does something about, the declaration being signed. And it does a little bit, the town says a little bit more about why this is important to it. So I wanted to address those concerns that you have and answer any other questions that you have.
Well, I have to disagree with what you said at the beginning about this not being a law. Perhaps an executive declaration, an executive order is not a law, but it clearly states in here that the state of Vermont formally condemns all of the items that we were talking about, and those will be protected to the fullest extent of the law. So I don't know how you can say that this is not legal in its binding.
I think this further emphasizes how we have laws in place that are anti-discrimination. This is not one of them, but this does sort of further emphasize to make it very publicly known to anyone who's interested in what we're doing in Vermont or in potentially moving here that we reject yada, yada, yada. But there's no law within that single statement that the governor signed. It's just a re-emphasizing that we will pay attention to our laws, pay attention to the rights of the people that what we have in Vermont, especially with respect to discrimination in all of its forms. This is kind of like underlining things. This is kind of how the way that I see it. It's just, this is not a law. This is not really binding, but this is sort of really making it publicly known and putting an underscore or bold or whatever your emphasis of choice is, that this is something that we value in the state of Vermont, and it is something that we value as a town, and that we commit to really paying attention to it, and that we reject discrimination in all of its forms.
Yes, I just also would like to reiterate what Marie said, what Jane said, what Bill said. I would be very proud to be a part of this community. I think it seems like a no-brainer. It's about people first. It's about inclusivity. I would think it would be in everyone's best interest. And Bob, you asked about, well, where do we put this? I say we make a plaque. We put something in the town hall. We have a sign that's as big as the Reading Historical Art Crafts Fair out on the front lawn. Anything, or just something that's on the website or the Reading Informer that just reminds this is something that we members of the Reading community care about, value. We value the diversity in all forms, and that we do make some sort of concerted effort to try to embrace and protect some of these protected classes of people, one of which I am, one of which my household is. And in this world of rising anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, homophobia, I think now more than ever is a time that we really ought to make a strong statement. And to me, it's a no-brainer.
I continue to say it, and I'm going to say it every single time we talked about this, is that I agree with every single tenet that we've talked about. And Mark, like you, I have in my family some of the protected classes that are in here. And so it's important to me. My only issue with this whole thing is that I feel like if the state has said this, then I'm still struggling with why we have to do it at the town level. And I completely understand people's arguments that it is an underscore bill, as you said, and it's an important statement to make. I feel like I can see both sides, and Sarah, like you said, I also am concerned about the message that we're sending if we don't. So, and that I don't want that to be an intentional message that is sent.
Well, what message were we sending 2 months ago? Is it any different than the message that we're sending today? If
I
we
would,
sign,
I would argue if the select board is agreeable to sign on this declaration, you have put on public record that Robert Allen, Gordy Eastman, Bob Hartnett, that you, as a member of the select board and as a member of the Reading community, embrace what the declaration, the spirit of what the declaration is saying. And there is that testament. And nothing more needs to be done.
If you want to know what happened in the past month, a lot happened in the past month that personally affects me. So, you know, I don't want to see my husband's a Holocaust survivor. I don't want to see a swastika on my door. And a month ago or 6 weeks ago, we would have never thought that that would have been as aggressive as it is now. So, I mean, a lot can change in a short period of time.
And if you agree with it, I don't see why you would hesitate. You know, just because the state, and again, he's the governor, he talks for the state in the sense that we as an agency have to follow these policies now. That does not govern what a town does. It is not applicable to a municipality, which is its own entity.
so I think we're already following all of these regulations.
So
Why do we need to write it down?
Why not admit it?
I just admitted it.
That's not the same. It's not the same as being public about it. You're keeping it underground. You're supporting it, you're saying, yeah, but I don't really want anybody to know that. Why would you not want anybody to know that?
No, I don't think we're saying that at all.
I think you are.
You're entitled to that opinion, but that is, I'm trying to state very clearly what I think.
I understand that.
You can say you understand, but then you're not acknowledging what I've been saying.
You've been very clear
Okay.
that you agree with it.
I think on this topic, I think it's I mean, depending on your point of view, one can say that it's unfortunate that you know, someone may that if you agree with everything that's in this, but yet unfortunately people that don't know the town and people that don't know you, and this is the general you, won't be aware that you do support it. And we are in an environment in which this is supporting something like this is seen as a little bit more binary than I think some of us might be comfortable with. And that in order to truly demonstrate, in order to make it truly public, in order for people to really be aware that we as a town do support these things, then that happens through a signature of this. It doesn't happen as extensively or as publicly by just having a discussion and putting it in the minutes that we support it, but we're not going to sign it. Truly, the demonstration of support that we as a town are being handed comes in the form of putting pen to paper on this document.
I'm not ready to do that. That's my opinion.
Why?
Because I don't think it's needed. We're already supporting it. I do not think it's needed. End of story. Bob?
I've been talking a lot. I'd like to hear somebody else's opinions too.
I made my statement. Again, I know there are places out there. I don't think Reading is as bad as a lot of them relative to bias, but I'm sure there is some underlying bias, maybe even in Reading. But I don't think that our adopting this or signing this is going to change anything one bit. That's number one. Number two, I'm not sure, I'd like to get more information as to why the governor felt he had to do this in the first place. And I don't mind, I would support it, but I'd like to know something had to have been driving this. I'd like to know what that is.
You know that one of our own legislators resigned because she was black and she got so much abuse
From Bennington,
Yes.
yeah. I did know that.
So that's out there, that's what's going on.
We all know that this is out there everywhere. And yeah, signing this is not going to change that. I mean, it's not.
It's going to make a statement, and that's what they're asking.
Somebody wanted to say something online?
No, I actually, that was me that made a noise, but I don't know how much more compelling we can all be. It's just, we're in a circumstance in which, in order to truly demonstrate that we support all of these things, we have to sign, we sign this. And then that makes everyone know. And, you know, if someone were to ask me, well, you know, what is Reading's stance on inclusivity? The way it stands right now, the only statement I can make to somebody who's asking is, well, our select board is very supportive of, and they do, you know, say that they rejected in all of its forms, but unfortunately, no, compared to other towns in Vermont, we did not sign on the Declaration of Inclusion. And people can take from that what they will. I think we're risking the view that others will have of the town by not signing this. And if that's something that you're willing to put at risk, then we have to accept any potential future consequences from it.
Well, I think I'm not gonna sign it. I don't know if you guys are gonna sign it, but if this becomes an issue, we may revisit it later on.
Can I,
I'm sorry.
I'm just gonna say, can I make another proposal, Gordy? Again, my whole gripe with this is nothing to do with the wording and the intent. It's purely, I feel, this has already been handled at the state level, and I don't think the town has the right to really change or decide that we're agreeing with what the state has said. Can I, as Bob was saying, you were gonna look into why Governor Scott signed this proclamation before. What if we said that we agree with what the state has said? I mean, I know that that's the intent of it seems like this particular group that is doing this, but as Jane said, maybe something modified. If rather than doing something different from the state, we said we completely agree with what Governor Scott has said in his Declaration of Inclusivity.
You think you can write up something for the next meeting?
Okay.
I don't want to be flippant, but you have it right in front of your hand. It's already written for you.
Okay.
But it doesn't say that. I mean, Bill, I know it says the exact same words. It says the exact same words, but my whole gripe about this is that I feel like the state's handled it, and it's not up to us to put a rubber stamp on what the state's done. So,
Sarah?
yeah.
I very much appreciate what you're offering right now, and I would hope that the select board would go with the proposal that Bob is making. I think it does two things. It does not leave us in the position of being silent at a really difficult time in the world, and it honors how this town uniquely sees itself positioned in relation to the state, in relation to these communications. So I think it does the job. It communicates how this town sees things, and it doesn't remain silent. So thank you.
And it's like preemptive, rather than waiting for something to happen and then make a statement. Make the statement before something happens. So everybody's like on the same page.
So, did you make a motion?
Do I need a motion if I want to come up with some?
No.
No.
Yeah. Let me take a cut and I'll take an action for the next meeting to have
Okay.
something for us to consider.
All right.
Okay.
Good. Thank you. Anything else to come before the meeting tonight? No? Anything under other?
For once, I don't have anything.
That's good. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.